So I put it to you that there are three different areas of contamination that are of concern. There is the quality of the water itself. There is the contamination of the mud at the bottom of the canal. And there are contaminated pieces of property along the sides on the land, along the sides of the canal. So let me start at the end point there. The properties that are contaminated around the side of the canal, some of them are heavily contaminated, and some of them are very lightly contaminated. They are, by and large, the responsibility of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. The three, what we believe to be the three most heavily contaminated properties, were all formerly manufactured gas plants. Back starting in the 19th century, gas to light our homes or to light the streets was manufactured by taking coal, heating it up, you get a gas out of it. We didn't get it out of the ground the way we do today. We made it from coal. But it left over a horrible residue called coal tar, which we believe to be the source of the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, the PAHs, that heavily contaminated the canal. There were three of these plants along the very short distance of the Gowanus Canal. And so those are known to be significantly contaminated, and they're being remediated under the authority of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. As you will see, these are all very closely connected. All these three areas of these three issues are very tightly interwoven and connected. So we are working very closely with the New York State DEC, but they're in the overall authority on that one. I mentioned that the water quality itself is a problem. And the water quality problems are dominated by the combined sewer overflows that, as you all know, come into the canal from a variety of different locations. There too, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation is in the lead, working closely with EPA's water program and working very closely with the City of New York. And the City of New York has a consent order with the State of New York to make improvements to the combined sewer overflow by diverting a certain amount of that flow away from the canal, about a third is what's predicted, and also by refurbishing the flushing tunnel that many of you are aware of, which brings fresh or fresher water from the East River, or actually from Buttermilk Channel of the East River, brings it up to the head of the canal, lets the canal have a flow and be aerated, and it reduces the smell. Again, there the State of New York is in the lead, the City of New York is the one doing that work. That leaves the third major component that I mentioned, which is the contaminated mud at the bottom of the canal. And by agreement between ourselves and the State of New York, we have taken over that problem. Clearly, these are all three very closely intermixed. The mud is contaminated because of the properties that were in the activities that were taking place along the side of the canal. And in particular, we know that the coal tar is still leaking into the canal from those coal gasification facilities. Christos is going to talk to you about what we have learned regarding the sources of contamination. Obviously, if we're going to spend a lot of money and time and effort to clean up the canal, the mud, we need to make sure that the sources don't recontaminate the canal. So working closely with the State of New York is a key element in that effort. Similarly, there are still probably some amount of contamination, and Christos will talk to you about that, emanating from the combined sewers. Certainly in the past there was probably more, but there's probably still some. And to the extent that there is toxic chemical contamination coming out of the sewers, we need to make sure that that is identified, tracked down, and eliminated or controlled as much as necessary, in addition to dealing with the sewage-related problems that the combined sewer overflows do cause, which is basically raw sewage, dilute raw sewage coming out anytime it rains. So these are different areas. We're working together with the different government agencies, but we have to stress that because this is how bureaucracies do things, and it's a strength as well as a weakness, but it is how we do things. We're going to be talking about dealing with the mud and making sure that the mud is cleaned up. It is very, very, very filthy, and so it's a major element, but it's not, we understand, the only element.